Ever felt betrayed after a job interview? Here's a jaw dropping story of a job seeker who got ghosted only to find the company used her work without permission. Let's see how she turned the tables and got her revenge, making waves across the internet. Okay, so here's a really interesting story in Yahoo Finance about a woman who was shocked to discover the work she did for a company during an interview process was used without her permission. Wow. Not only was she told she wasn't a fit for the position, but it was because her style wasn't the right look and feel for the business. So the article goes on to say that performing a task relevant to the role is common, and I agree. I've seen it happen lots of times. There are some experts that say you shouldn't push too hard against it because it isn't worth the risk. And realistically, an employer could use the work you produce during an interview process, but most of the time they don't. It's not ethical for them to do so. Now, unfortunately for this job seeker, Harriet, she was in the slim 10% category where companies are sometimes shady. She applied for a designer role and she was asked to come up with a creative for the company to show off her skills. So that means she was asked to come up with social media posts, some graphics and content that could be used on social media channels. But she was rejected, and several weeks after the rejection, she noticed the exact same creative she came up with, and it appeared on the company's social media. Wow, I just can't believe that a company would reject a candidate and then post her work on their own social media channels. So she contacted the business to see if it would tag her. Now, Harriet is doing very reasonable things here. She's doing all the right things. But she was rejected again. And she was told that the company was allowed to use whatever material was made during an interview as they saw fit. Wow, this company is just over the top. They interview a candidate, they reject her, saying her work's not good enough. They take her work and then use it on their own social media. And then after she calls them out, she just says, well, we can use this however we want. Now, the reality is she might have a legal case, but the company probably knows that, hey, they're not going to take me to court for this. It's not worth their time, energy, and effort. Fortunately, Harriet had Ben Askins on her side, and because of the wave she made on the internet, Ben Askins, who's famous and has a big following on social media, he put the company on blast. So let's take a look at actually some of the text behind what's been going on. You can see in the text messages, she just says, I wanted to reach out. I applied for the designer role. She was told she wasn't the right look and feel, but she saw on their Instagram page that they posted the exact same creative. Wow. And you can see right here the response. Unfortunately, we don't tag people on our social media channels. Wow. And then I'm glad that she pushes back and she says, well, I was rejected for not being good enough, and you've technically used my work without permission. Now, Askins actually followed up with Harriet to see if she was eventually able to get paid for what she did, or at least acknowledged in the post. She didn't get credit in the end, but she did escalate it enough and managed to get paid. Well done. So she was able to use her social media skills to escalate the situation on the internet and escalate it to management, and the company finally paid her. Now, there's some experts that say, well, there's no official rule on whether you should get paid. I think this is a bit of a murky area. There's no consensus here. Some say if you want a job, you have to do what you have to do. Employers want a certain type of person. And if you push too far, it can backfire. There's some good advice here that says it can be challenging to distinguish what rights you have to your own work. If this is unclear, you can ask your interviewer. But what's the bottom line here? The bottom line is that the company should not use your work without compensating you or hiring you. Now, here's my advice. Many times you will have to do work for a company as part of the interviewing process to prove that you have the skill set. It could be a coding exercise, it could be a marketing assignment, it could be presentation, for example, and that's okay. My suggestion is if the work takes, let's say, an hour or 2 hours, don't worry too much about it. Don't ask too many questions or push back on having to do that, especially in this job environment. But if it's a significant amount of work above that, then it's better to ask for clarity. And asking the question actually puts the company on notice that you're not willing to work for free and that they should not assume that they can take your work and use it for their own purposes without compensating you. Okay, well, I like a happy ending. If you have any thoughts or comments, add them below and stay savvy.